Out of university, I went into the airline business, and unfortunately, at a time of consolidation, when the airlines went from 11 down to 3, and sign on the wall very much was to get out. So I went over to the Royal Bank of Canada, and which I would recommend to anybody. Banking's a fantastic experience, but very different than the open-ended strategic planning that I was doing at the airline, which was we're leasing a DC-10, should we put it on Vancouver, Honolulu, or Vancouver, London? Go away and come back in 2 weeks and tell us what we should do. And where the banking side was, the commercial lending side was very prescriptive, and so many processes that I wanted to get back to the open-ended, and so joined PKF Consulting, and did a lot of obviously feasibility work and assisting on valuations and whatnot, and that was great because it was back to, we have the site, what should we build on it, if it's a hotel, what quality level, all of that, so fantastic, and then went over to Price Waterhouse on financial advisory services at a time when Canada was in a deep recession. And so we were dealing with court-appointed receivership for restaurants, hotels, going back to the banks. It was a difficult time, a lot of work, but difficult work, especially dealing with owners disgruntled or having their assets taken away. So it was a challenging time. And then my colleague from Vancouver at PKF had gone over to Hong Kong and asked me to join him, and so we were running the largest hotel consulting firm in Asia at the time, with about 20 people, 10 nationalities, and covering about 18 countries. So it was very interesting. At a time when Asia was in boom, so the mid-90s, and very exciting. And then in '97, I went down to Singapore to open an office for PKF there. The theory was to open the office, build up the practice, and then sell it off to one of the big accounting firms. And lo and behold, that happened about 18 months after I had moved to Singapore. It was sold to Price Waterhouse. But about 6 months before that, I had been approached to join Hilton, and so did that, and wanted to get into the industry, into development. And Hilton had a great reputation in Asia Pacific, had a lot of legacy properties, having been there since, for instance, 1988 with the Hilton in Shangri-La, the first 5-star hotel in Asia, and did development for Asia Pacific, and then added in Middle East a couple years later, and was able to get through the Asian currency crisis, a time when there weren't a lot of deals around, and survived through that. And then the economy got better, and I think just by virtue of getting fair share, was able to expand the company, the Hiltons over there. So that was very exciting. Conrad as well. And then moved to Dubai to join Jumeirah Group. That had a small cluster of hotels in Dubai, and
What year was that, Jumeirah?
That was 2005.
Okay.
And these properties were owned by Dubai Holding. And they had 8 hotels, 6 in Dubai and 2 in London, and they wanted to go global and had great aspirations. So a sister company bought the Essex House in New York. And so we put that together. They were the owners, and Jumeirah Group was the managers. The idea was to add to that portfolio other assets in the U.S. and to build teams in New York, London, Shanghai, Singapore, and of course Dubai, and expand globally at the 5-star luxury level. And we had a great run. It was fantastic, managing the planning team, doing all the feasibility, the design guys, specialists in operations on food and beverage, and operations, managing spa, and the commercial guys doing the deals. And as I say, we had a great run, signed several really exciting projects before. Of course, the recession hit hard, and where we had to pull back. Thankfully, a lot of those projects that we'd signed up carried on, got completed, and now the company is significantly larger than it was at that time, with a healthy pipeline. Yeah, they're well on their way. I then went to Whitbread, who own Premier Inn and Costa Coffee, a FTSE 100 company, and they wanted to expand Premier Inn outside of the UK. They had a couple of hotels already in the Middle East and India, and the idea was to put together a strategy for international in a sensible manner that made such that we had a team that was able to do that without spending a huge amount of money in the process and in expansion. Having said that, it was very much a asset-heavy strategy transitioning to asset-light. So we were wanting to get into the hubs with flagship properties and then filling in the spokes in asset-light. So the PLC board approved a $500 million strategy over 10 years to go in and buy sites and build. And so we did that. We put the teams together. Again, we opened an office in Singapore and one in Jakarta, and had an office in Dubai and Delhi, and moved those assets forward. Appreciating that Whitbread owned at the time over 650 hotels in the UK.
Oh, wow.
And so they had no managed properties. And so being in the asset-heavy arena was fine with them. They understood it, and they were experts at it. They were fantastic at it. And so we were able to carry that on, and the company's doing well, expanding and continuing with and moving it to more and more asset-light hotels now throughout Southeast Asia, Middle East, and India. So that has gone well. And then subsequent to that, I joined where I am now with Kerzner International under the leadership of Alan Liebman, and we're expanding Atlantis and the One and Only brand. Atlantis, obviously, more difficult because of the scale.
Yep.
And so there's a limited number of markets that you can do an Atlantis in. These projects are, in excess of $1 billion, round figures. They require a massive amount of lift into the market, great rates, sensible pricing on land and construction, and a workforce that's ready and able and paid competitively. So there's not a million markets around the world, as you can appreciate, to do those. So we're looking at several markets around the world, and we're working on a few. There's Sanya under construction now that will open in 2018, and that being the Hawaii of China, I think it will be massively successful. Appreciating that where Jumeirah was more grassroots, I was really stepping in at a point where it was day one, if you will, and it was a matter of putting everything in place, policies, procedures, all of it. And same with Whitbread, in the context that it was very early days, and so our VP Finance at the time, who I brought over from Jumeirah, him and I would get together while he was still at Jumeirah, get together on a Friday morning or Saturday morning, and we would sit in shorts and t-shirts and put the strategy together. So it was right from the start. We were in a room. I brought my secretary over. Three of us were in a room smaller than this, getting it going and buying pencils and trying to write strategy and everything in between. We did that. We did that grassroots very much at Whitbread as well. Whereas Kerzner had a strategy, had markets that they were keen on going into, both on the Atlantis side and the One and Only brand. And so I was coming in and bringing more in terms of processes and policies, and as opposed to really starting grassroots and saying, okay, here's a collection of hotels, what happens? Because they were already around the world. So it's been a matter of being a player in that team to get it done. And appreciating that, having been with the company for a year, I've spent the majority of my time to date on an Atlantis project that we're working on. With that, say in order. We're concentrating more on one and only.
Okay.
And the investment corporation, or Dubai very much is keen to see that brand grow. So it's great timing, and it has so much potential to grow. It's a fantastic brand. In terms of the brand, it's absolutely critical to stay committed to the brand quality. So every brand lives within a band, right, of quality. And every company has, there might be an extreme term, but there are stars and there are dogs. Thankfully, One and Only doesn't have any dogs, but every brand has its band. The critical thing to me is keeping that band narrow. So it's very easy when there's commercial pressure, right? There's this notion of taking the hotel or the resort because of the income stream, and that adding and taking pressure off of cash flows. But what that does to the brand overnight is not great at all. And so it's better to just stick to that commitment of saying, now, appreciate that it's good fees, it's a long-term contract, it's a good location, but we know that it's just, the rooms are just too small, the hotel's too small, location's just not good enough. Let's just stay committed to the cause. And it's tough. We would love to be in New York and Paris with One and Only, and London. We've turned down projects in locations that others would say, well, it's not bad, but say, no, we need to be in ultra luxury locations. So it's tough, but you have to stay committed to it. It's using the surfing analogy. When you've been sitting there waiting for the next set for a while, the tendency is to take the first wave, and usually the second wave is better. It's counterintuitive because being a development person, you're sort of wanting to get the fish in the boat, right? But long term is the only way to go, and that means you've got to stick to the quality. You've got to stick to your brand. Seeing lots of brands that just widen that band so much that you get developers who are quite sophisticated who say, well, hang on a minute, you've got this one, but you've also got this one. And in previous lives, I've had to sit in front of developers and say, okay, great, I like your brand, but that one down the road is not brilliant.
Yeah.
And my friends are going to say, what on earth are you doing? Because they've got one down the road and it's not great. So, it's a matter of sticking to the commitment, and also I think in doing the deals, it's about getting a fair deal. I know when I started out, doing management contracts in the asset-light context, you wanted to get the best deal for the company. The best approach is when you walked away knowing that you've given up something but still want to do the deal, and they've given up something but they still want to do it, then that's a happy marriage. And that was an important lesson to learn quite quickly. With our strategy, we've got a focus globally, and we've got several targets we're going after. There are tens of targets that we're going after market-wise in each region of the world. So we've got a lot to look at, and there is an appetite to invest, but also a willingness to do dry management agreements as well. So there's enough to work on. That I think will be just fine and get that growth going. I think it's a very bright future for One and Only. And Atlantis, the Dubai property has been so successful. Yeah. I mean, just scary successful. And I have no doubt that, having lived in Hong Kong and Singapore and done hotel projects in Hainan Island and in China, that the Atlantis in Hainan Island will do fabulously well. it's a long, cold winter in China, and to be able to go down to the palm trees and blue sky and lovely ocean and to a property like Atlantis, the number of Chinese that are coming to Dubai to stay at the Atlantis already, that segment of the market has grown massively. So there's already an understanding for a lot of Chinese people of what the brand is, and it's been the property. It's been received extremely well to date, and I think we'll be able to carry on with that. That's a great link for us already with Dubai. At the end of the day, right, it's all about the return on investment. So to have that background is incredibly helpful, because when you look at the circle of the hotel industry, half of it's the operations side, right? Getting that right, getting that that bed to market is very difficult. It's complex, but increasingly complex, and at the same time, that's one thing. So you're getting down to the EBITDA level. Then it's the price. And the price of construction, the financing, make sure that the debt coverage ratios make sense. Putting all that together so that the entire picture unfolds to be profitable. It's fantastic. It's an incredibly exciting industry, and those complexities make it exciting. So it's I would recommend it to anybody. There's so many facets to it, and you don't have to be stuck in one area. At the end of the day, it's a magical arena to be in.